So the area that was there and the map and the area that was there in the land records was having only matching 50% of that. So where is the problem? And then the whole story was told to me that government of West Bengal tried to digitize maps, around 100-year-old Stuart maps. There was thousands of village maps that was laying in West Bengal, and they wanted to digitize. They have digitized 100 maps, and they have completely checked the maps, and the vendor has delivered the maps. Now there is a problem that the area is not matching with the land records, and it will not be implemented. So it was a student project, academic project, fine, it was all over. But my mentor told me, you have a MNC job in hand, so you can go over there and I can give you a stipend. And I'll give you some good work, whether you want to remain over here or you want to go to somewhere else. So I remained over there. And then we realized that there was a paper, and the paper was 100 years old. And because the paper was having also a scale over there, the scale shrunk. So we have come up with a table of paper shrinkage factor. And that paper shrinkage factor, a table of different dimensions of paper shrinkage factor, we have done empirical method, we have gone with surveyors. Around 1 or 2 months of vigorous learning, vigorous development and research. That paper shrinkage factor, whenever we have multiplied with the area, it was around 98.2% match to 100% match. The system was completely done. It was pilot run over there, and I think now it has been implemented in all over the West Bengal state. 12 years before we had done this, I left that project, and then I have been interested with another project. The idea lies it. That particular part is still in NLRMP website in NIC, but we have not developed the standard out of it. If that could have, as the vision of NIC would be like, I will use a community-driven research initiative, wherein anything that is being digitized in India, like paper to digital map, we will have some certain standard that will be followed by all over India. So whether it is in Trivandrum, whether it is in Bangalore or Calcutta or somewhere else, the NIC office who does this, they will have something, and there will be 4 or 5 or even 10 researchers who are working on different parts. They will contribute on that, and then gradually we will come up with a documentation. Why I told this story? The reason, when I was working with this now as a network engineer, 4 or 5 years before, we tried to implement first L-root instance in India, and then I ventured into network layer. I have seen internet like this. The inventors of internet tried to document everything, whether it is from RFC 1 to the latest RFCs. You will see the old RFCs was having 10 lines, 15 lines of document. Just only simple thing they have written. We want to do this. Okay, fine. So these are 10 lines of RFCs, 15 lines of RFCs. They have documented everything because they knew that it is going to be big. We don't have this culture in India. We research in isolation. We research in islands. We don't research like, it's a community-driven approach. We are a vast country over here, but the research is isolated. And we actually create millions of lines of code every year by our team. So my story is not a single story. This type of stories are there written every day in India, but we don't have that culture, that vision that, okay, fine, these lines of codes can become a standard. Now, going by this, when I ventured into network layer, I have gone to a simple company. Anybody heard of Microtech over here?
Yeah,
Latvia is a very small country in Europe. Around 1996, there are 5 or 10 researchers, 2 co-founders, I just forgot the name. They have started this company. The company is producing routers at a scale where they can even they can have a full BGP routing table, and also a router that is a home router. Now when they have started, they have taken a Linux kernel and then the stack, complete networking stack, they have put together and having a router OS, and this router OS can be implemented in any of the computers, and it will become a router. Simple idea. You have a computer, you use that router OS, and then you will have a computer running as a router. Why entrepreneurs are working on this? India is a big country, at least bigger than Latvia, because they understand that if there is a standard, and standards are nothing but catalyst of development. If we have standards are industry best practices. If we have standards developed in a country, or the vision to have standards, automatically what happens, the students and the entrepreneurs are having some manuscript for success. They can transform these things into lines of code, and that product is actually usable. That's a quality product. So it is our responsibility for the academia, for the industry, and for all researcher community across India to work on this type of community-driven research, where we can come forward for standards. And India is a big country, we have lots of use cases. MikroTik started in 1996, and I think in India there are lots of small ISPs who are using MikroTik. They are having lots of routers. They are having coming up routers, their wireless system and everything. So why there is a need of standardization? These two cases from my experience from 12 years before, when I was working as a GIS practitioner, and then this 4 years when I come across a company who is just using a Linux kernel. I think we have a BOSS Linux, right?
Yes.
Can we use that BOSS Linux for something else? There are lots of opportunities that we can serve. Now, I am talking about something 12 years old and something 20 years old. So, whether we miss the bus? And it has a definite answer, no. We have missed the bus, but today if we will not come forward, we will really be in a very different stage. Because internet was used as a medium of communication, and now we are putting our critical information infrastructure over internet. And a communication medium, a networks of network, wherein we are putting our critical information infrastructure, the power, the banks and others. And if we don't have at least practitioners who are researching on standards which is driving internet, then definitely we are not in a good shape. And as a matter of fact, 2 weeks before, one company from Kolkata came across me and told that we are doing surveillance. Even I was talking with Avijan on this. We are doing a surveillance thing. Surveillance, a small segment, no, it's a big surveillance company. They are procuring cameras from China and other parts of the world, and then they do surveillance. What is the problem? The problem is we are using a cloud server over there, and the data goes to cloud server, and then we are using it, we are giving it for the election commission. So they are doing this surveillance for election commission. They are using it, doing it for critical information infrastructure surveillance. They are doing it for education sector surveillance. Lots of surveillance. And there is one camera that has just come up right now from China. That firmware is completely closed. So you can't access that firmware. I have taken the camera in my hands. The firmware is completely closed. I tried to dig, I tried to hack, but I have seen that there are lots of encryption methods that has been put into the firmware. When you on this camera, it is automatically connected to internet, and it is transmitting the complete surveillance HTTP streaming to a server that is there in China. And if you have your mobile app, you can view the camera, and the camera is really HD quality. and the cost is around 2000 to 3000 rupees. Now, if this camera is being used by companies and this camera is actually deployed in any country, then what happens? You don't know where your surveillance data is going. And I've tweaked something. I've used a router and just bypass the IP so that it goes to my server. Simple. Forwarded the IPs to my server, and I got that streaming. It was not encrypted, and I got not the audio, the video part I got, so it was there. So from my server it was listening. So basically they are using HTTP streaming. Now the problem is there any standard on this? If yes, we should have companies who can work on this, and there can be products that, okay fine, we have an open source firmware which can be used on these hardwares, so just import hardwares, nothing else. We are providing the firmwares. Or we don't have any standard, we can come up with standards. That, okay fine, this is the standard for surveillance camera or video streaming camera, and the second requirement of his was, we want a very low cost solution and for a low cost device. So the device is not having power, so if it is having a power bank, like an IoT device, Raspberry Pi having a camera, and then you have a firmware that is actually doing the whole stuff. So we have use cases in India. We have many things in India that can be standardized and that can be developed. But what happens actually, we don't have that courage to look beyond. We don't want to say, okay fine, jo chal raha hai, chal raha hai. So everything is going on, it's going on. We don't want to break that. And in IETF I have seen 2 or 3 professors, I have interacted with them, and it was like they were not contributing in RFCs. They were not contributing in RFCs. What they were doing, they were coming to IETF, listen to the sessions, simply listen to the sessions, and they were going back in their country, and they are forming a group of students and group of researchers over there. They connect these these scientists from IETF to these group of people, and then they say, if you want some open source code, they are there to provide you. So you will be having a use case over there. So they are there to provide you the source code. So that guy, that professor is there only to get problems from all over the world. He will sit in a session and listen to the problems that these guys are facing, and it will jot down the problems, and then automatically he will just talk with the guy that, okay, these are the problems, I have a community with me, and these problems can be solved over there, and you correct these 2 problems. So now what happens, we are actually working on test books. We are thinking that, okay fine, this test book, this computer programming skills, these are all okay. But in academia, we are not infusing problems, the real life problems. We are there to solve, even the students are there to solve, but we are not actually making them solve. Okay, this is your master's degree program. Say last 6 months, these are the problems that you need to take care of. And this is the relevant problem that you need to take care of. These are the standardization issues that you actually take care of. Because if you will take care of these issues, automatically what happens, there are lots of industry that will grow. The need of standardization is because of this. We don't want, whenever we just see that, okay fine, whether it is IETF, whether it is IEEE, whether it is ISO, whether it is BIS, all groups are there for standardizing things. But we need mentors, academic mentors, who should come up with problems. And this is high time that industry should look forward to academia to solve problems. And whenever a person coming out of an academia or institute, he should have something to work. If he want to be an entrepreneur, then at least he have a vision that there is some manuscript there, there is some use cases there, and I can just make some product out of it, and that product can be marketable. Like this surveillance camera example. If we have standards ready for this, there are lots of companies who will come across and will say, okay, fine, you think of hardware, we are thinking of your firmware. And we are building the firmware for you. We will maintain the firmware. It will be completely secure firmware, and there will be a framework so that there is no data loss and there is no data theft. So the thing that these industries are regenerated because we have some standards, we have some manuscript to work upon. Now, whenever you are talking about invention, definitely it is needed. I don't see that invention is not needed. It is needed, it is the actual thing. But whenever these inventions are getting into practice, and whenever something comes into practice, it is readily acceptable thing. If you have something readily acceptable thing documented in a country like this, it can be globally used. And that's the motto. At least our standards, our things should be used by us also and for the globe also. That's the motto that we should have whenever we are trying to achieve something. Now, deciphering standards, I thought of having a big presentation over there. I thought of amalgamating 4 or 5 presentations and make a presentation for this session. But understanding standards, I have seen that it's a very simple piece of cake to understand internet standards. Not a very hard thing, as I see from my end. Have you worked with IPC, inter-process communication, as for the student and researcher community? Inter-process communication. Now, if we see internet, there are lots of hardwares, there's lots of communication medium, and there's lots of softwares running. And these softwares, when they are lines of code, they are programs, and when they are in a running mode, they are processes. And if two processes are communicating with each other, they are inter-process communication. So if I am connecting with two processes, like these two processes are communicating with each other, they are inter-process communication. If I am taking the liberty right now, saying that the whole internet is actually some lines of codes, some processes running in routers, switches, servers, some transmitters and receivers, and there is a data, formatted data. That data is actually traveling across this IPC, inter-process communication. So if it is BGP protocol, it is nothing but BGP process that is running. There is a BGP, there is a packet format of that BGP, that process is having a set of rules. So set of standard rules, common rules that they follow, these processes, and they are actually processing each and every packet. So whenever we are talking about internet and we are talking about standards, the only thing over here is internet is so vast, networks of network communication, wherein we need standards. Protocols, when used vigorously, protocols when used in a very large scale, they become standards. And likewise, whenever we talk about standards, a very specific work that we are doing right now, and I want to convey this over here because that actually gives us impetus to understand that how complex this is, and we should be capable enough that not capable enough, we should understand this, and as a community we can work towards this. There's a big challenge. So the first of all is we need standards as we grow as a country, so that at least the entrepreneurs would grow and we will have a product lineup with us. There is a need of standards. Then we need some base case studies also. And the third one is the implementation of standards. That is also weak in India. The protocols, they are not implemented properly. Even if we talk about internet, whether it is implemented properly in India, how many of you agree? No. Yes. And we have experienced this. Last December 2016, we have a Vardha cyclone in Chennai. and because of that, eastern and northeastern part was completely down. So there was no internet for 2 days, and even Union Bank and other banks were not capable enough to do transactions. So whether it is NEFT transaction, whether it is Paytm transaction or any other transaction, it was not capable enough to do the transactions. We have Jio, we have Airtel, we have Vodafone, we have Idea, we have lot more companies, telecom companies, good. But how this happens, whenever anything happens in Chennai and the result is going to Calcutta and then Assam and then Meghalaya. One of my friends from Meghalaya is there, Suvendu. So I think that has created this. And why this is so? So we are working on this. I'm just giving on one idea. Can we have a role play over here? A small role play. 4 or 5 persons, 4 or 5 volunteers I need. Raise your hands. Nothing to do. Just 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So whenever we type inSIG.in, what happens? Good. So I'm confined within the cameras. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So whenever we type inSIG.in, what happens? We get to see inSIG.in website. That's the first thing. As a user, I want this.
Just a point, you can use your podium mic.
Podium?
I mean, just the mic in front of you, you can use it.
For the audience, sir.
Volume is okay, or I need to? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So we don't think much. inSIG.in, we should get inSIG.in. But what happens actually behind the scene? There are 4 or 5 players. So which was the first volunteer? You are a browser. I'm a user. Who want to be a root server? Okay, so you are a root server. And then DNS is a phone book of internet, as we see. A phone book of internet is like this. If I remove something from your mobile phone, you can work, cannot do anything, and that's what your phone book. Just I remove phone book from your mobile and your mobile is working fine. You can dial 1 or 2 numbers. You can't actually remember numbers right now. So your mama's number, your wife's number, your girlfriend's number you can dial, and other numbers you can dial. So you have a phone book lost from your phone, then what happens? Everything is working, but you're gone, you're lost. So DNS is phone book of, address book of internet. And how it is maintained is not like that, my name and my phone number. It's not like that. It is a tree-like structure. So the first is dot, and then if you say inSIG.in, so it is inSIG.in dot. So dot is there, then in is the TLD, that's called top level domain, and then the inSIG, that's the domain name, and then www is the service. And this dot is root server. So who is root server over here? Your root server. Then who is TLD server? Going to be. You are the TLD server. And who is this authoritative server? You are the authoritative server.
From one line,
Huh?
or from one line.
So it is going to crash. And I think Sunny will give some Anycast root instances.
They're all on the same network.
Yeah, they all.
Same autonomous system.
Now, if I just query, and there is one more is required, you become a recursive server or the resolver server. Amrita? Okay, no, so anyone else, volunteer for recursive server or okay, you. So whenever I type www.inSIG.in, the browser is actually looking forward the host computer, whether it is there, the IP address of this is there or not. And if it is not finding it, it is going to your DNS settings, that whether there is some DNS server there as a resolver or recursive, it goes to you. And if you are a recursive server, then it is your duty to come back with the address, whether it is you find it or not. So it is your duty. So you will go to first root server, you, and say that, hey, you know what is, where is inSIG.in? She will say, no, I don't know. But I know where IN is. who maintains IAN. So okay, fine, that will do. Give me IAN's address. Then you will go to the TLD server. That you know what is inSIG.IAN. Yes, inSIG is a domain and that is hosted by this authoritative server. You can go there. You just go there and then you go to the authoritative server. I want www.inSIG.IAN. Oh yeah, that is my service. I manage this. So this is the IP address of that. And then maybe this server or that server only or other server is hosting the www, this domain sites like the HTML pages, any site that is there. So you now directly communicating with that. And it happens in a 20th of second, if I'm not wrong, 50 millisecond like that, or 100 ms. That's the latency that you will take, and it depends on where actually you are. And you will cache that information within you for around 1 hour, 1 day, based on the information they have given you. So you will cache that. So next time if another browser is going to you, you will say, I know the IP address, so you visit. See what happens if this root server, who is root server? Perfect. Is not within the country. No root servers in the country. And there is one root server in Singapore and there is one root server in Amsterdam. What happens? If any C-Link failure, disaster happens in Chennai, in Mumbai or other parts of country, we are having 3 or 4 C-Link that all over internet is working. Your internet is completely down and we are talking about Digital India. Fact is this. Now we have 15 root instances in India till date. So last 4 years we have done lots of work so that now 15 or 16 root instances are there in India. But again there is a question. Which are the ISPs are connected to it? Whether these ISPs are getting these root server instances or TLD instances from the network within India, we don't have any idea. Because we don't have community-based research on DNS still in India. We don't have internet research labs in India which will actually give impetus or which will actually serve the need of this type of researches. So if all the ISPs will come back and say, okay fine, we have some DNS test bed implemented somewhere, we have DNS probes implemented somewhere, and I had to believe, or you can say use a NANOG presentation that was done by Princeton University guys, and they have taken India as one of the case studies with Brazil and others, 5 countries. It was NANOG 67 presentation, and they have used around 15 or 16 or around 20 probes over there, and they find out that most of the top 100 websites that are actually originating from India, the queries are originating from India, it is going to US. So 66.7% traffic is going and coming back, so it is doing a boomerang, a routing detour over there. So this is the state of standard or the protocol implementation status in India. Now academia, industry and research bodies, even CDAC and other bodies also, they can come up with internet research labs that is open to researchers, practitioners. There are lots of ISP practitioners, BGP, even DNS practitioners are there in ISPs, small ISPs, and even they are interested students also. They can be one of the pioneers who will come up with some data, will come up with some implementation best practices. Okay fine, this is not implemented properly. And you will see the KSK rollover that was planned for 11th October, the DNSSEC root KSK rollover that was postponed. Why? And the reason I can say is that okay fine, DNSSEC is not properly implemented not in India, in all over the world. So they don't understand how things are working. Even somebody who has actually implemented DNSSEC, they left the company, and some other person don't know how to do this. So this awareness at the level of practices, best practices or the industry practices, that is also required for standard and protocol implementation. We also require at a particular level, certain level, to understand that yes, we need to work on standards properly. It is high time that we have lots of codes we have written, lots of products we have maintained. I have said maintained. lots of products we have developed, but now it is high time that we start thinking of standardizing the things, and that vision to have standardizing the things so that it can actually benefit the community at large. And the third one is come up with some invention that is really required. As far as IETF is concerned, we have two good guys over here, Abhijan and from SIDAC. So they are working on different RFCs right now. Abhijan is basically he is having a first indigenous IETF draft last year, right Abhijan?
Yeah.
Last year.
Indigenous RFC.
Indigenous RFC, we can say all the authors are from India. And some other things that are working on IETF. If anyone who is interested about IETF, how to write a draft and how to get involved in IETF, definitely the next two sessions are there which will guide you through this. But I think the interest is more important. It has taken around 10 years or 8 years of my professional life after my postgraduate studies to understand the basic need of standardization for a country and for individual and academia and all. So it is more than to make yourself interested in this segment, and then everything is easy. Writing a draft is not a very tough game if you understand the technology. Getting involved is nothing tough, everything is there over internet. If you go and see IETF, there's the first thing you will see. There is a video in YouTube readily available. If it is your first meeting in IETF, there's a 10-minute video, it will show you everything. Okay, fine, this is the Tau of internet, Tau of IETF. You will go through the RFC, the document. It will show you what is IETF and how the thing is and how you will get involved. And how to write drafts, that's another thing. So that's also there. So everything is there. YouTube, Google, it's there to make you learn about IETF and other standard bodies. But the first thing is you need to understand that there is the importance of it. And anywhere, if you have any idea in your mind, whether it is internet, networks or anything else that can be standardized, this is the time. If it can be standardized, or the second thing is it can be patented, that's also a case study. That's also there, that you can come forward and okay fine, this is the idea, come to the community, bring it to the community, and then you will see lots of reviews are coming up, and you will see that okay fine, this thing we wanted to do, there are other parts also that should do, that should work around this. So with this, I think, yeah, so 15 minutes I'm having. I thought of having a presentation, but this was all I wanted to share with you with the experiences that we are having. We want that a large community base should come up. We have given some proposals to different departments, ministry also, and the industry also. We are from Kolkata to all over India. We are doing some work on this part, wherein we are coming up with root instance research group. Second, the DNS instance DNS research group we are coming up with, and we are coming up with some sort of white papers wherein as a country we should be prepared for disaster recovery, and for that what should be the internet architecture and what are the changes we need, and as a standard and protocol implementation what should we do. We should have some research groups with us who can assist. I will just request all of you, if you are interested, keep in touch with us. And there are lots of other, in the last part of our talk, I will connect with some of the Indian initiatives that the IETFers are coming up. There is IESOC, one society that has come up. We have formed India Internet Foundation, where we are working as a think tank and the research group which is working on these platforms. Internet chapters are working on this. So there are lots of working. SIDAC and other organizations are also going forward. TCS also, it was not working on standards. Now also these companies are coming up because the things are changing, because they can now understand that the need of standardization and why we are 20 years we have left this part we need to come up and we need to solve in a community-oriented research mechanism. The only thing that I will end with is this community-based research that is very much required. All the institutions in India, whether it is university and all, come up with some portals wherein at least if you are doing something, the community can come up and do some contribution. And then IETF bodies are there and other bodies are there where we can go and contribute with this. And if there are questions, I'm ready. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. And identify your needs.
I'm Shomita Sarkar. I work for BSNL as an assistant general manager. I just have a question for you. As you had given us one example that the camera example that you were giving me, and the server is somewhere in the cloud, and somewhere in China, everything, all the data is going there, streaming is happening there. Do you think it's a big security issue with the country?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we keep hearing, that all our data and everything is with China. So any day anything can happen. So does IETF is taking any initiative to, I don't know, to make something indigenous, wherein the data doesn't go to China per se?
Answering
This is a question. It was there in my mind since long, and I didn't know where to ask. And since you have come up with that, so I thought.
Yeah, sure. Now see, whenever we are talking about IETF, it's a group of, even informal group of scientists all over the world, and how they work actually. There is some problem that come across, and they use a bird of feather session, BOF session, and in the community they started talking on that, and then there is a document prepared, and based on that protocols are made. Protocols are nothing but they are actually building blocks of internet. Now the problem that India, there is some packets which are going to surveillance nations. Now what happens? Whenever your packets are going to other nation, so it is a property of that nation. So what happens to that packet, we don't know. It is us, it is a country which need to look after this and understand the need that this should not be done. It is not IETF's job, it is not ICANN's job, it is not any other organization, global organization's job. It is the job of the country to understand that what are the problem areas and how to understand the problem areas and mitigate those challenges. So there are lots of departments over here with us, lots of scientists are working on this, we have. So it is up to them. So like this camera issue, IETF has come up with some of the very innovative protocols. Now if we want to solve this, it can be solved very easily as a use case. We are having a firmware that is open source, or we are having IP addresses and set. The cloud is there, and the ISP who is actually connected to this camera is connected to an internet exchange point, and that is there within the countries. So this ISP is directly connected to the internet exchange point, correct? Now the data is traveling to that internet exchange point, and the cloud server is also there connected to the internet exchange point. And the ISP, the IP address that is actually dealing with this, can use BGP secure, that RPKI and ROI. There's a protocol implementation wherein the address of this surveillance thing is propagated only to the limited ASNs. So you're done.
That is also one way of doing it.
Yeah. So there are lots of things that can be done. It is the way we need to think ahead. So there are protocols available. There are even you will see different companies also, big companies are using proprietary protocols. We are rather using 8.8.8.8. That's Google DNS, and that's a big story behind that. Yes.
Mr. Anand, it's a good presentation on understanding of the standards. Now, as you touch upon the RFC and the patent, so can any RFC document be patented?
Actually, that's a tricky question. Now what happens? Two things are there. If it is a patent, then definitely you need to pay for that. It happens that there are lots of RFCs, the standards that are patented eventually, or there are lots of patented things that has been that are standards that's there, and that's how the whole network companies, whether it is Ericsson, whether it is Cisco, whether it is Juniper, other companies, they work. If I'm not wrong, Visa. Any other question?
I think, Anand, you need to specify what IETF does and does not. Samita, to answer your question, IETF doesn't tell how it moves, as in what the current companies are doing, but definitely how the traffic should move, what should be the standards is where perhaps people who feel it is important can participate in those discussions, but no way will IETF tell you that your packets need to move through China or US or anywhere. It is the companies who actually decide it based upon economics. So it's much more easier to have data stored in US because most of the internet companies are in US. So typically IETF will never get into it. But unfortunately most of the companies there are US or Chinese companies at IETF.
There is one, I just want to share one experience that I had in Toronto meeting. Right? So in IETF, what you have is one session where you give away prizes to some of the research work to universities. So, and it's a huge kind of plenary. And so one university from Canada, they were actually proposing some research problem in which they wanted to figure out a protocol so that if my traffic, suppose a traffic generated in India and its end destination is also in India, so in no way the traffic should go out of Indian geography. The protocol will ensure that. So their use case was like, someone is trying to send a traffic data from Toronto to Vancouver. So they are far apart. Vancouver is on the west coast, right? Now what they observe is that the traffic from Toronto is actually getting routed through Los Angeles. Okay. And so that was a problem statement. So what they wanted to ensure that the traffic never leaves the border of Canada. Okay. It should never go to USA. But the reaction from the crowd was not very welcoming. Mostly the companies, Cisco and other companies are there. They were pretty much like, why? Because to rule you out, the first thing is to rule your problem out. So if I can rule your problem out, I can rule your solution out also. And that was only from an university, and the teacher was, the actual guy was also not present. He was a PhD scholar, PhD student. So he got some kind of banging. Now these are definite areas of concern that maybe US is not, or some geographies they are not bothered about, but there are plenty other countries who should be bothered about.
Yeah, exactly. Because all the, if you see mobile companies or, whoever is giving us internet network is all Chinese companies. I think this is a very big concern. If someday, we have nothing with us, then what? So that is exactly what I wanted to ask from you.
Yeah, and what I got to know from some communities is that probably some companies, they are bound by their law of the land to share some of the data with their government, or whichever geography they are working in. So that is a matter of risk. And China is in most ways following US philosophy, the way US companies work. So yes, it's a risk.
If I could jump in. Yeah, the research in Canada.
Introduce yourself.
Glenn McKnight, I'm the chair for North America with ICANN, the North American at large, and I'm also a board member with ISOC. What you were talking about, the Toronto distribution of data, it's going through the Chicago Exchange.
Yeah.
Dr. Andrew Clements did a lot of work on this, even with national sovereignty. The big problem for Canadians, just like I think what you're talking about, is all the data was being picked up by NSA, National Security Administration. So that's sort of questionable in terms of what kind of sovereignty do you have, ownership of your own data, and who wants NSA scrutinizing that data. So it's the same thing with your big brother next door with China. So yeah, so Dr. Clements has done a lot of research on that whole issue. It's no wonder they push back, but it's still a very important issue.
Hello, this is Anand from Chennai. Last year we have fell about the Varda cyclone. You will say only 2 days. I will be living there in Chennai nearly 10 days.
10 days?
And no network, power shutdown, anything will be not there. At the time of we have communicating all the things and broadcasting everything, the railway is the only network will be helps us.
Yeah.
We are recovering and rescuing people from the flood also. That time, what happens? What the time we are? I also see what are the things of the organization will be there. We are support the people. At the time, we are not passing through any SMS or anything. No network. Everything will be very dark. In the bigger city, in a metropolitan, we have the support like that one. What about the small villages? What about like Kathmandu like places?
Correct.
So what is your role?
Yeah, see, the thing that we have done some work over there. So whenever we have this issue, the Varda cyclone, when it happened, before that we had lots of talk about this that Avijan and Lane was talking about. We had several settings with government and other agencies that this is a big problem. But whenever this Varda happened, that has justified that okay, they are talking about something logical. Now what happens if you have small exchange points, and in those exchange points, whether it is statewide, all over India, every state would have an exchange point, and then all the ISPs, small or big, are actually connected to that exchange point anyway, and that exchange point is also hosting some of the critical internet infrastructure like root servers, instance of root servers, these TLD servers, the instance of TLD server, so it can be any class instance of TLD servers over there, and the authoritative server part over there, and then the critical services like the data center, state data center, like iPhone Calcutta that we are having, the state data center is housed in the same building, and we are trying to get in them into, so they can't understand why we are doing that. But the time this state data center will have will be joining this exchange, having a root L and J root with us, and we are figuring out with some recursive servers also over there and some authoritative servers. Then the data that's there in the state data center, whether anything happens anywhere, the ISPs who are linked with that internet exchange will survive.
Any disasters happens.
If any disaster happen, it will not be like propagated, it will be confined.
Suppose any other risk and mitigation plans would be there on IETF?
Yeah, pardon?
Any risk and mitigation plan for expecting any disaster if it happens, it will be given for communication to the other peoples and the communication platform. Anything is there in IETF?
I'm not getting your
Anand, what I think is boiling down to is that we are getting certain good use cases which people can at least write use case drafts and make them RFCs.
Correct. We are getting good use cases.
I have a comment here,
Yes.
Satish Babu from inSIG. I was just given the feedback that there is a mix of audience here, some of whom might not know the basics of what IETF is and what it does, whereas others are kind of advanced. So some of the discussions are perhaps kind of
So we'll
We lost.
have a session on IT.
So
So
maybe
we have a second season with
yeah. So where we should probably start with the
Yeah,
basics
yeah, basics.
of what it does, so that they can catch up.
Yeah, so actually the idea was to have a basic understanding of why standardization is needed in the first session, and then from second and the afterward sessions we will be actually working on how IETF works and what actually IETF does. And thank you very much for listening.